TV show is really quite something, and it's being seen as a way for the government to promote its attempts to reduce Saudi Arabia's reliance on oil and to help weather the oil slump. How important is getting that message to the Saudi Arabian population?
Very important. I think that, not just in Saudi Arabia, but across the Arab world, we have public sectors that are bloated. So the fact that in Saudi Arabia they have decided to drill this message in on television and very publicly is excellent. It's in line with the spirit of transparency and accountability that they're trying to promote through the National Transformation Program. The fact that very few other governments are doing it, but all the governments know that this is a problem across the region is something we already know. There's complacency in the region, and this is a problem that has dogged the governments for years and years.
But some of the quotes in this TV show were really amazing. So we saw one of the ministers, for instance, say that, quote, without the recent austerity measures, the kingdom would have gone bankrupt in 3 to 4 years. Is that a fair summation?
Bankrupt not in full technical terms, but in the sense that it would have been very difficult to continue to keep up public expenditures at the rate that they have them now. I think this is a moment of reckoning for the kingdom, and particularly for the population of the kingdom, to come to terms with the inevitable, which is belt-tightening and restructuring. And I think that the choice to do this on television is, again, quite courageous. Now, what I hope will happen is that some of the proceeds of the bond, fantastic issue that came through last week, will be used not just to pay companies and create a nice ripple effect in equity markets, as we're starting to see, but also to supplement the incomes of those that have been hit by the austerity measures, because there's a sizable proportion of the Saudi population that does work for the public sector, and the public sector cuts will hit them in the pocket quite soon. So I would hope that some of this would be used toward measures to widen the social safety net and deepen it for such people.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about that, because, of course, Saudi Arabia did tap the market for $17.5 billion, but that only goes a little bit of the way towards easing the burden on public sector workers, particularly when the Gulf in general tends to lack work for skilled workers. I was reading a Citigroup research note last week or last month that said in the Gulf states there are only enough skilled jobs to accommodate 1 in 5 locals of working age. So how do you transform the economy quickly enough to accommodate those people?
Quickly enough is a big question. The most immediate way of doing it is through efforts to employ more locals and through attracting foreign direct investment to expand the economic pie. Now, what's interesting about the bond issue from last week is that it's a vote of confidence in the long term. Let's not forget 37% of this issue was in long-dated paper of 30 years. That is true due to emerging market appetite, but it's also due to confidence that the system is going to deliver on what it's promised to do, and confidence in the long term, which is a huge benefit.
We were just discussing the enormous appetite we had for Saudi Arabia's debut bond sale last week. $67 billion worth of orders for $17.5 billion worth of debt. What does this say about the wider appetite for emerging market assets? Is the environment conducive to that search for yield that we're always talking about?
Well, you might have noticed this year there's hardly any emerging market debt issue that's gone badly. So it's mostly gone well because of the search for yield, and because emerging markets have demonstrated that in the end they've survived the financial crisis relatively well. Brazil seems to be coming back with a bit of difficulty, but so confidence in emerging market debt has not been shaken, and I think the appetite for the Saudi issue is spectacular, almost 4 times oversubscribed, of which 37% was long-dated paper.
Right.
That may be true, Florence, but at the end of the day, there are still some long-term concerns about the shift to diversifying the economy in Saudi Arabia. Do you think it's going to be successful?
I think it's going to be challenging. I think the effort that's being made today is a serious effort. I've spent 16 years of my childhood and teenage years in Saudi Arabia, and I know it well. I think that the new team in place has the energy, the vision, and the desire to transform the country. And very interestingly, they have put through the communication strategy to complement this. And the television show we were just talking about a moment ago that took place last week, debating the merits of the transformation program, is an example of that. There's quite a lot of public communication of what's going on, which is very different from the way the kingdom used to function in the past, and very different from the way many of the other governments of the region continue to function. So it is challenging, but clearly the energy and vision are there. And if they accomplish only half of what they've set out to accomplish, I think that would have been a great start.
Look, at the end of the day, it really just still boils down to oil, doesn't it? I want to show you a chart right now where we're seeing in the Bloomberg, just bring it up right now, G space 32370 on your Bloomberg. Really, but what this chart shows us, Florence, is that the markets are taking a wait-and-see attitude and really allowing this rally to continue on at $50 a barrel. Do you think that, number one, if OPEC's going to be successful, and number two, if we're going to see this rally continue?
I think there's definitely a desire for OPEC to be successful, as expressed by the leader of OPEC today, which is Saudi Arabia. There's a desire to do a deal. I don't think that they would have gone as far as they have done in announcing essentially the draft of a deal if they weren't looking to do a deal and to make sure it happens, because Saudi Arabia can make it happen. Either by forging consensus, which is what they have started to do over the past couple of months, which I have found commendable, or by shouldering a significant proportion of this burden of the cuts. So my feeling is that something is going to happen. Now, how strong of a deal this is going to be and how convincing to markets is something we have to watch out for, and how much of a bounce we get in oil prices is a result of that.